All right, let's talk about mutations. Mutations are a big part of what we study in genetics. And there's really two places that mutations happen in the body. There's gametic mutations, which happen in the gametes, and this is in the sex cell formation. That is going to affect every cell that comes from that very first cell, from the very first sperm or egg. So all the cells in that body are going to show that change in the genetic structure. There's also somatic mutations, which happens sometimes after fertilization, and depending on when it happens, it will affect different amounts of the cells in the body. If it happens in one cell very early, when the embryo is just 2 or 3 cells big, then it'll affect maybe half the cells that are in the body. If it happens much later, then it's going to be just a few cells. If it happens way later, like after you are an adult, it might be an example of a mutation in your skin cells that causes a tumor causing skin cancer, something like that, in a very localized spot. The cause here is random errors in cell division. So in mitosis or meiosis, and that could be random, it could be just a mistake, or it's caused by a carcinogen, and that could be radiation, for example. UV radiation is a carcinogen. X-ray radiation is a carcinogen. That's why when you go to the doctor, they cover up the rest of your body with lead to block those X-rays. Viruses can actually cause mutations as well, and environmental toxins can cause this also. Most mutations are silent, actually. They don't cause anything. That's because much of the DNA in your cells doesn't actually code for anything. If there's a mistake in a piece of DNA that doesn't actually code for any proteins, it's never seen by your body. The other reason many mutations don't really cause damage is because the codons that are 3 letters long tell the cell which amino acid to put on the protein. Many of them actually only use 2 of the 3 letters. So if one of the 3 gets changed, it still reads for the right amino acid. It's really kind of an insurance policy that you can have. You can survive some mutations without it doing anything to your body. Sometimes new traits or modified versions of a trait can come from mutations also. If they're advantageous, like maybe an immunity to a disease, most people are susceptible to that disease, but there's a few people that are not. And the reason they're not is there was a mutation, maybe in their early development, that made their cells have a different DNA structure, which gave them a little bit different protein, which gives them a little different resistance to, say, HIV, for example, or something like that, or the flu. These kinds of mutations are crucial to evolution because they're adding the new versions of genes into the gene pool, which is crucial for evolution. Let's look at a strand of DNA here. There's usually 3 kinds of mutations that happen, whether they're caused by a random chance, by a carcinogen, or by a toxin, or something like that. We have a substitution mutation, where we're taking one letter out and putting a different letter in its place. And that can change then that one codon that's being read. It can change one piece of amino acid for another piece of one protein. There's also an insertion deletion, and that's where you're actually adding in an extra piece. And that extra piece can have a big effect because it then might change everything down the line on that DNA that's read from that point on. It moves everything over by one letter. And so then it could change all the amino acids that come after that. So think about this. If you are reading an email from someone, if they substitute the wrong form of their, for example, they use THEIR instead of THERE, you can figure out what they mean even though it's the wrong version. So that would be like a substitution. But if they insert an extra word, it might change everything that comes after that, the meaning of everything that comes after that in the sentence, in the paragraph. And that's kind of what an insertion mutation could be like. It could make a big difference, or it could make very little difference. Then there's also deletion, and that is like the insertion, but in reverse. You're taking out one. So then it shifts everything over the other direction. Again, it could change all the codons, which could change then all the amino acids, which could change the whole protein. Let's look at a couple examples here. Sickle cell anemia is a change in one nucleotide which gets substituted in the chromosome 11, and it creates this codominant mutation. It changes the shape of the protein that makes the blood cells So the cells are sickle-shaped and they get actually stuck in the blood vessels. It's a codominant, so it mixes with the other form of the allele for this and can have varying degrees of sickle cell depending on the other one. Cystic fibrosis is another one. There's 500 different or more different recessive mutations on the chromosome 7. And so what this means is that the protein shape can be changed, and there's a lot of different mutations that can make that happen. It's a recessive mutation. So if I pass on that mutation to my child, it's recessive. Therefore, unless they get it also from their other parent, then it won't show up. So there's less of a chance of it showing up. And then there's one called Huntington's chorea. This is just a dastardly disease. This is a dominant mutation on chromosome 4. It's a change in one of the codons on chromosome 4, which causes the protein structure to change. After a certain age, you build up a certain amount of chemicals and proteins in the brain, which causes neurological dysfunction and eventually death by about age 50 or so. It's a slow, painful death. It's a dominant mutation, so you only need to inherit it from one parent. It's a pretty rare disease, fortunately. Mutations are a crucial part of the genetic story here, and most of the time they affect nothing. There's different forms of them, different causes of them, but sometimes they can actually cause a positive advantage, but other times they can cause many of these diseases, or at least these are the ones we know about because we study them, because people are affected by them directly and get sick from them. There's maybe lots of mutations that happen that are minor that we don't even really know about because they don't make people sick. And so we haven't had time to invest money into figuring out what they are.